The number of bears in the Central Forest Reserve in Russia is higher than anywhere else which lies between the Atlantic and the Urals. There's approximately 1 bear per 1,000 hectares of land. For centuries, impassable marshes and dense thickets have protected these forests and their inhabitants from human intervention. This is what has preserved the conifer forest, which is 360 kilometers west of Moscow in the Tver region. In 1931, the Central Forest Reserve was founded here. There's a small village hidden in a remote part of the reserve, far from major roads. Around 20 years ago, a family of biologists settled here. Currently, the spot is referred to as the Чистый лес, or the Clean Forest Biostation. This is the only center in Europe which takes care of orphaned bear cubs. Every morning, Sergei Pazhetnov and his son Vasily go out to feed the cubs. The only way bears recognize humans is by their smell. That's why the pair always wear the same clothes when feeding the animals and never use aftershave before feeding them. The entire process of feeding the cubs with porridge takes no more than 30 seconds. Sergei and his son scatter the food and quickly retreat. This is how they teach the cubs to become accustomed to finding their own food, because once they are 7 months old, they will be left to their own devices. Valentin Pazhetnov is an ecologist and the founder of the Biostation. He and his family have lived in the woods for almost 20 years. The biologists raise orphaned bear cubs, keep scientific records, and then release them into the wild. Over the years, Professor Pazhetnov has been able to study bears thoroughly. This is why he has a fence around his small apiary.
Recently, 2 young bears came here and completely destroyed 2 beehives. They ate all of the honey. They opened the hives, took the frames out and ate all of the honey, along with the bees.
This winter, the scientist will have to do without honey. But Valentin knows that once a bear gets a taste for something, it will continue to search for it relentlessly. Persistence is typical of bears. Valentin's observations and stories will all be included in his book about living at the biostation and working with bears. The main message is, if the people realize how much a bear cub and a child have in common, maybe they would stop killing bears in such a cruel and senseless manner.
Животный мир.
The animal world is organized in pretty much the same way as the human world. This is the case with highly organized species like apes, dolphins, bears, wolves. You can say their life is similar to ours.
The Pazhetnovs' house looks like a bear museum. Most of the gifts that visitors like to give to the biologists are based on bears. They are everywhere. Ceramic bears, stone bears, iron bears, wooden bears, and even glass bears.
This bear here comes from India. It's malachite. And this little bear, he is from Japan. It even looks Japanese. This bear is from Switzerland. Friends gave it to me when I visited a university there. My collection even has a bear from Australia. You see, the koala is not a variety of bear. By the way, Australia and Antarctica are the only two continents where there are no bears.
January is the most difficult and worrisome month for the family of biologists. When hunters try to kill a bear in its lair, it's often the mother who is killed. People bring cubs from all over Russia to the bear orphanage. It looks like a real orphanage. First, people feed the cubs with milk, keep a record of their weight, and give them a bath, which is necessary because the cubs behave just like children. They often get dirty. In their natural environment, their mother takes care of them by licking the dirt off, but here taking a bath is the only option. Then they need to learn to find food for themselves. The cubs develop very quickly between the age of 2 and 3 months. Once they have grown a little, they learn to walk. When the spring comes and the cubs are 3 months old, they are moved into an open-air fold. They are much stronger by now, but still, they don't dare to leave the home they have grown accustomed to. They are afraid of venturing out into the wild and to start living in the woods on their own. By this time, people have stopped feeding the cubs.
These are the bear's dishes. They're all washed and clean. The cubs have grown, so they no longer need them. Now they're going to find food on their own, and the dishes will be put away until next year, until February.
Valentin's wife, Svetlana, is also a biologist. To her, all of the cubs raised at the biostation are like family members.
We get used to them. Some of them are my favorites, while others are naughty. But the main thing is that we can release them. Finally, they will have a home, because what we gave them was just a temporary shelter to let them grow a little stronger. As scientists, we realize they'll be better off on their own. So, of course, we don't think of them as our property.
Svetlana is busy all day long. She has lots of things to do. Svetlana tends the garden, feeds the chickens, and helps to take care of the cubs. During the 17 years that the biostation has existed, the scientists' family have managed to raise 130 bear cubs. All of them were returned to the wild. This year, the Pazhetnovs are taking care of 13 orphans. After they have been through a period of rehabilitation, they leave the Clean Forest Biostation and go back to various parts of Russia.
A mother bear raises her cubs for 18 months, after which they are no longer a family. That's why this is the best time to let the orphans go. We make an ear tag for each bear. They have an address where the tag can be sent if the bear dies.
The only thing that the Pazhetnovs could rely on was their enthusiasm, until the International Fund for Animal Welfare began to support them. Fund representative Igor Belyatsky visits the biostation on a regular basis. He brings humanitarian aid for the babies. They need diapers and milk formulas, just like babies do. In the evening, the entire family gathers around the table, along with visitors from Moscow. They talk about the coming day, when they are going to release the cubs back into the wild. They say that this year, it's going to be a bit more difficult, as the cubs seem to be anxious for some reason.
This project is unique. There are similar projects in other countries, like Estonia, Canada and the United States, but Valentin Pazhetnov was first to do this on such a scale.
Several years ago, volunteers from various countries started coming to the woods of Tver. Igor Beliatsky brings not only supplies to the bear nursery, but also volunteers, many of whom are foreigners. Having stayed at the biostation once, some of them return and bring their friends and colleagues with them. The number of people who want to go there is more than the station can accommodate. Volunteers are given various assignments related to maintaining the station. If they are lucky, they will see a bear. The Pazhetnovs have plenty of things for the volunteers to do.
Yes, but I think he's given that to Sergei.
Language isn't an issue. They understand each other quite well. Daniel comes from England. Back home, in a small town, he's an environmental activist. But of course, there are no bears there. Daniel never imagined that he would spend a summer in the midst of the Russian woods, fixing a fence around a fold for bear cubs. Daniel has learned a lot about these forest giants. For example, the little-known fact that bears have a language of smell. A bear's smell depends on what they want to say or show to the other bears.
I wanted to do something. I had some time off. I had 3 months off work. I wanted to do something useful, and this is Russia. Not everybody gets to come to Russia, and not everybody gets to feed and look after brown bears. So that's why I came here. How did I find it? It was on a website called Eco Volunteers. So there's lots of other things on there, but this is the place I picked.
There are many things which seem strange to Daniel, but he's proud of himself. He's not only learned to live in the wild, but also made some new friends. He has enough time to take the dog for a walk. Next year, Daniel wants to come back with some friends. By September, it's time to let the cubs go into the woods. As they look for something to eat, they go deeper and deeper into the forest. Gradually, they get used to living on their own. By the time winter is over, the bears have forgotten about the people who nurse them and will fully adapt to living as wild animals. The Central Forest Reserve was founded in the early 20th century for the purpose of creating a virgin territory which would feature plants and animals typical of the European part of Russia. The fact that this area enjoys reserve status has helped to preserve the impassable forest. Being a ranger, Sergei Stepanov spends most of his time deep in the woods. He has to maintain the guest house and check the bathhouse. It's quite popular with visitors during the cold autumn and winter months. The first time Sergei came here was as a tourist. After his first visit, he dropped out of a university in Moscow and moved to the reserve to work there. He now leads a team of workers, making arrangements for a group of foreign visitors arriving shortly. They have to prepare everything so that the guests are comfortable and can take a tour of the reserve. Sergei sent inspectors out to check the trail. They will examine this 6-kilometer-long path designed specifically for walking through the virgin forest.
Some people just want to spend a couple of days in the forest. They come during the winter just to stay here without doing anything special.
The Nachnaya River flows quietly among the dense bushes and grass. Graylings come here to spawn, and there are even some trout. But bears and badgers are the only ones allowed to fish here. Fishing at the reserve is prohibited. Before Valery Yefimov started working here, he owned a hunting ground in the Novgorod region. But 10 years ago, he reviewed his attitude towards nature.
In a reserve, the main goal is to recover and maintain the population, while at a hunting ground, the goal is to kill. Here, it's different. I'm not getting any younger. People my age want to leave something behind after they've gone. I'd say it's better to give something to nature than take away from it.
Valery is concerned that his young helper, Vasily, may decide to move to a city after he leaves school.
The trend is that most of the young people who live here are boys. We have hardly any girls. Well, there are college students who come and go. Local girls usually want to move elsewhere.
So far, Vasily Shubyenko is happy to walk along the trail. He knows a lot about animal footprints. He's in his final year at school and wants to be a biologist.
This is a bear's footprint, 4 to 5 years old. They walk along this path every year. This is a typical bear footprint. If you try to run away, they can attack you, but if you stand still, they will just take a look at you and move on. Some people will even tell a bear in a calm voice, "Go away! On your way! Get out the way!"
Each summer, geography and soil science students from Moscow State University come here for practical sessions. The Central Forest Reserve is part of the satellite monitoring system, which keeps records of the Earth's biosphere. Every 15 seconds, sensors installed in the woods transmit a signal containing all kinds of data, like the level of solar radiation or the speed of moisture moving within the trees. Each soil sample is meticulously examined in a lab, as it contains information on tens of thousands of years of our planet's history.
There used to be a glacial lake here. This was, let me think a second, 20,000 years ago. Later, the glacier retreated, forests started growing here, and the soil acquired a well-developed spodosol horizon. This soil is typical of moist areas with a lot of precipitation.
Economic activity is prohibited at the reserve. The only thing that can uproot a century-old fir tree is a major thunderstorm. The fallen trees aren't removed, however. They have to decompose in a natural way.
This fallen tree will take up to 30 years to decompose. Lots of insects, some of which are quite rare, will make their home here. Then young trees will start to grow on top of it. Each fallen tree has its own story.
Even ordinary moss from a marsh contains crucial data for scientists. Andrei Numukhin gathers material for his thesis on sphagnum, the most common variety of moss in Europe.
Sphagnum
dominates the marshes. It can accumulate much water, which determines how marshy the area is. Plants which grow on the surface receive no minerals from the soil and fully rely on what they get from the atmosphere.
Scientists believe that they can develop the best preventative strategies depending on how much a region has been affected by humans. Analyzing moss enables the scientists to know ahead of time which area may soon become arid or marshy. This data is widely used in agriculture.
Сейчас
Scientists have proved that marshes aren't just static, they grow. For example, this marsh here grows 1 to 2 meters every year.
болото Староселье.
And the reason this happens is because of sphagnum moss. Moss is what produces a marsh. When you walk through a marsh, you are basically walking on moss.
Вы идете по мху.
The reserve labs allow for scientific research in a number of fields. This is a craniology storage. It has more than 3,500 skulls from 17 different species of animal from various parts of Russia. Most of these skulls were donated by hunters. Nikolai Koroblov, the son of the head of the craniology lab, wrote a thesis based on the data he collected as he examined the skulls.
Researchers are attracted to working in the reserve because they can work in close contact with nature here. They have the object of their study at their fingertips. They can observe things all of the time. They can keep systematic records.
Animal skulls hold crucial information, but one has to be able to extract it. During the 30 years that the lab has been operating, more than 100 bear skulls have been collected from various regions of the European part of Russia.
When we examined the bear skulls, we discovered that quite often bears have problems with their teeth, primarily caries. One factor which contributes to this is the fact that bears like to chew on oats. They often like to go into oat fields and eat there. They damage their teeth as they grind the stalks.
Nikolai is the Deputy Director of Scientific Research. Along with the director, they discuss plans to increase the bear population at the reserve.
We already have a decent number of bears in our reserve, so releasing the cubs that are currently in the nursery right here may not be a good idea. We could release them somewhere else, where the density of the bear population is lower.
In order to help the bears, boars and birds living at the reserve to find food, there are around 10 oat fields. In early August, Nikolai Potyomkin goes out to inspect the fields. He needs to check if the harvest is good and if all of the reserve's inhabitants will have enough food.
It all depends on what kinds of bears are present at the moment. There is a clear-cut subordination. If there is a large bear living in this area, smaller bears tend to move elsewhere.
Bears can go into the fields without fear of being shot, as hunting is prohibited here. Oat fields help to retain the bear population within the reserve and can also be used as a convenient observation ground. If one is patient enough, one can take a peek at how bears live in the wild. There's a tower close to the edge of the field for visitors to watch the bears. They get a much better view from the tower and it's safer.
We can also let you listen to the wolves howling in the wild. Many tourists enjoy this kind of activity. You don't have to remove animals from their natural environment in order to enjoy nature and the animals.
Bears are often associated with Russia, and there's good reason for this. There used to be plenty in the country, but today the brown bear is listed as an endangered species. There are approximately 200,000 left worldwide, and the majority, 120,000 of them, are in Russia. Here in Russia, people consider the bear to be the king of animals and call them father out of respect. One thing we should all remember is not to bait a bear, as they can be very unpredictable.